you today and talk about how to deal with holiday triggers, especially if you find yourself single, if you're a single, successful woman over the age of 40. Maybe you are just out of a relationship or your divorce is fresh and this is the first or maybe the second or third holiday season that you're spending by yourself. Or maybe you've been single for a while to the point where it's gotten stale and you're questioning, am I going to be like this forever? Is this how all of my holidays are going to go? And I want to break down 3 hiding places that you may be guilty of falling into, and as well, some strategies on how to make your holiday season the best this year, and how to create new traditions, how to have peace in your heart, how to reclaim your confidence, how to regain your sense of identity, especially if you are newly single or divorced and looking for that healing. So first thing I want to talk about is what to not do, what to avoid. And the first thing that I want you to avoid or just take stock of internally is, are you wearing a mask? There are too many to count, an eon. So I'm looking for the right word, a plethora of information online that talks about how the narcissist wears a mask. The narcissist wears this mask. The mask dropped on the narcissist. And we get caught up in the mask that the toxic person wears. But most of the time, we fail to realize that if you attract these types of people in your love life, or you attract emotionally unavailable people in your love life, the fact is that there's a high likelihood that you are wearing a mask. And we often get trapped in wearing this mask as self-protection. And what is this mask for you as a woman who's educated, driven, career-oriented, all of these things? The most common mask that I have seen and I've experienced personally is perfectionism, wanting to be right, wanting to do things the right way, believing that there is a right way, wanting people to see you as good and worthy and deserving, as a good person. The other way this mask will show up for you is people pleasing, saying yes to friends that in your gut drain you, saying yes to extra work, saying yes to extra projects that don't align with you. The other way that this will show up is consistently being goal-oriented or believing that you need to achieve another thing. I have witnessed in my work with clients, somebody who, as an example, somebody who recently exits a divorce, and they will, instead of giving themselves some breathing room or some space to deal with those feelings, they will immediately dive headlong into a project, getting another MBA, going for that promotion that's going to bring her another extra 100K a year, going straight into online dating. All of these things, these achievements, these things that you can check off your list, that once you get these things, the belief is that it will make you feel better about yourself. And the irony is that most of the time, it never makes you feel good about yourself. You get to that point and you're like, oh, is this all there is? So the first thing to avoid and to be aware of, and ask yourself this question, like, am I wearing a mask? Am I showing up at work and plastering on a smile and saying everything's fine when deep down I know that it's not fine? Am I showing up to relationships and friendships in my life right now that I don't feel aligned with, but I'm tolerating them anyway? A mentor of mine says that we don't get what we want in life, we get what we settle for. In other words, you get what you tolerate. So where are you disallowing your own feelings and using a mask to try to get people to like you through people pleasing, through perfectionism, through achieving, that it's not working anymore? The longer you go in your life and that's your MO, I know from personal experience, the more it wears you out. And so really the main, and we're going to talk about this in a second, the main thing that is going to allow deeper connection and to shift your relationship patterns and break your cycle essentially is learning how to drop that mask. And if the mask that you have worn in your life has been the thing that you've done for 30, 40, 50, 60 years, that's a strategy that you've used for both your entire life to get what you want. And when we shift that and ask somebody to drop the very thing that they have used their entire life to get what they want, that transformation is not going to feel comfortable at first, but B, it's going to be the deepest transformation that's going to yield the most lasting results outwardly here in your life that you've seen yet. More on that later. So first thing, be aware. Are you wearing a mask? Are you hiding your true feelings? Are you suppressing who you really are? Are you showing up picture perfect in a polished appearance and not being authentic in your career, with your kids, with your family, with your friends? Are you feeling like you're stifling who you really are? That's the first mistake to avoid this holiday season. Second thing that closely follows that is isolating yourself. This is extremely common, especially for people who are recently out of a divorce or recently out of an unhealthy, low quality relationship. And there's some benefits of taking time for yourself, right? But where I see this veer into unhealthy territory more often than not is when people make the choice to isolate themselves out of shame, not wanting to be seen, not wanting people to know what they're really going through. And another mentor of mine says famously that shame thrives in secrecy. Shame thrives when nobody really knows what's going on. So if you have fallen into the trap of wearing your own people-pleasing perfectionism mask, it's likely that there's a lot of shame going on underneath the surface. And shame will drive, if that's your primary emotional home, shame will drive you to pull back from people in your life. Your kids, you may be physically there for your kids, but emotionally you don't feel present. You feel emotionally miles away. You maybe even feel guilty that your kids have had to witness that you've gone through yet again another poor choice in the dating department. Or maybe you try to hide what you're really dealing with your kids. And most of the time I found that kids always kind of know what you're going through, even though you're trying your best to hide it. You may be being around friends or being around colleagues or coworkers, and you're there physically, but you're not really letting on what's going on for you on a deeper level. And this will cause you, if this continues, to not take risks, to not take a chance on yourself, to not believe in yourself, to not bet on yourself. I will often see women who get stuck in a trap of they go to work and they have some camaraderie at work, but it's not fulfilling. It's like she's showing up wearing a mask, or she shows up and she doesn't feel like her work is fully aligned for her. Or sometimes she feels like she's judging her colleagues because they're always complaining, and there's this creation of emotional distance there. So if you find that you are living with shame and you're isolating yourself, what's really happening is that naturally you're protecting yourself. But the irony of healing this pattern in your life is that the only true way that you can heal relational trauma is through healthy relationships. And like I said in the first mistake, if you have spent the majority of your life tolerating relationships that have a lot of emotional distance, subconsciously, that's what you're most comfortable with. It might not be what you logically want or what you consciously want, but subconsciously your programming is still in there. And then secondly, you're going to find that you're feeling alone. Even when you're around people, you're feeling alone. And there's this inner critic, this negative self-talk, this shaming voice inside that is going to cause you to pull back and disconnect the opportunity for true emotional intimacy and connection. And the only true way to heal these patterns is through allowing yourself to be seen, is through vulnerability, is through taking a risk and saying something that might cause the other person to, maybe they judge you, maybe they reject you. So number one mistake is wearing your own mask of people pleasing and perfectionism, not really allowing your authentic self to be seen. You might have even forgotten who you are at this point, right? Isolating yourself is a second trap to avoid, especially this holiday season. And these things that I'm talking about, I'm speaking about in terms of the holidays, but these are things that that can keep you stuck at any time of the year, by the way. And then the third thing to avoid is unhealthy coping. Most people that I have spoken to and have worked with, and myself included, have some form of unhealthy coping strategy to pain. If you've been heartbroken in romantic relationships, if your primary lived experience is that relationships cause you pain or disappointment or rejection or abandonment, you are going to have some type of coping strategy that you use in your life to avoid feeling that pain. Some common coping strategies that I see, and I've mentioned a few of these earlier: achieving, being an achiever, believing that if you collect enough degrees or job titles or money in the bank or bags or vacations or certificates, like, extra career certificates, whatever, that means that you're enough. Other ways that are unhealthy coping: being a workaholic, being chronically busy, never feeling like you can take time to relax for yourself. This, by the way, is a byproduct of a nervous system that's trapped in a trauma response or trapped in a state of fight or flight or fawning or fleeing or whatever. Shopping may be your go-to strategy to make yourself feel better. You have a bad day at work, you just get off the phone with your ex. It's not a good conversation. You're talking about your kids. You feel really like alone. Maybe you go and several $100s on Amazon, or maybe you go and open a bottle of wine. That's another unhealthy coping. Maybe you doom scroll on your phone or just get lost down a rabbit hole on Facebook or researching the narcissist. These are things that you can easily slip into that will keep you trapped in this feeling of stuckness. And if you're watching this, and if you've watched other videos that I have made, it's quite likely that tolerating stuckness on some level feels kind of safe because it's what you know. And the devil that you know is a lot safer and better than the devil that you don't know, which is the unknown, and being vulnerable and being raw and being authentic and learning how to connect in a different way in relationships. So how can you create more peace this holiday season? The first thing is to learn how to validate yourself. This isn't going to happen overnight, and this isn't going to happen. There's no magic pill. It takes practice, right? Validating yourself means learning how to recognize when you are feeling triggered and learning how to slow down enough in that moment that you recognize that you're about to have a reaction that's going to produce a lot of pain. You're probably going to be stressed about it. You're going to get angry. You're going to get ramped up. You're going to do something. Learning how to have that awareness and catch yourself in the moment when you're about to react to something. And then instead choosing to either relax, to take a deep breath, just to simply recognize it and be present with what the feeling is. And most importantly, being present with where you notice that feeling in your body. I dive a lot deeper on this when I work with clients to help them break that pattern of being so reactive, being reactive to their ex, being reactive to dating, being reactive to the thoughts in their mind, right? Being reactive to what their kids did with their ex when over the weekend and his new wife, whatever. So learning how to validate your feelings. I would say the vast majority of women that I've talked to make their feelings wrong. And if you tolerated a low quality marriage, chances are high that you knew that that wasn't the right person for you early in the relationship, or you had some significant doubt early in the relationship. And when you ignore your gut feelings or your intuition, this doesn't make you a bad person. What that often indicates is that you have some subconscious programming, or that you have some abandonment anxiety from long ago that you aren't aware of yet, that's playing out in your love life. And you haven't learned how to work through that in real time and make a different choice when life gives you triggering situations. And when you avoid your feelings, you are invalidating yourself. And when you avoid your feelings and invalidate yourself, you then turn to other things that are a cheap replacement, like shopping or staying chronically busy or eating or drinking too much, whatever, that are gonna or researching the narcissist. He's wrong, you're right. You're gonna turn to these cheap replacements to validate yourself. Those things aren't necessarily all bad. They're good sometimes. Most of the time, they're not a lasting solution. They just keep you stuck in that same pattern. Validating your feelings means when you get triggered, being mindful enough, and we work on this a lot. This is like the thing that we work on at least for the first 8 weeks with clients, is learning how to be more self-aware and regulating their emotions and rewiring their brain and their nervous system out of a fight or flight state. But when you can slow down enough when you're triggered and be aware that it's happening, that you're about to do something, or being aware that you're getting angry, or you're shutting down, you're feeling contracted, and instead just be present with that moment. That is a beautiful way of showing up for yourself and validating your feelings, being present for your feelings, allowing your feelings to happen without suppressing them or making yourself wrong for having them. The second thing that you can do is learning how to create new traditions for yourself. So maybe this is your first season alone after a long marriage or after a significant relationship. Being honest with yourself about what can you do that maybe you've put off for many, many years that can help you create a new tradition. A lot of women that I talk to, they've always wanted to travel more. They've wanted to start a business. They have these things, these visions, these dreams on their heart that they've never given themselves permission to go for. So what is one thing that you can try on this holiday season that is A, going to get you out of your comfort zone, but B, that's going to help you develop courage? One of the exercises that I give clients when we first start working together is learning how to date themselves and take themselves into experiences that are out of their comfort zone by themselves. So if you have found that you're isolating yourself, or you found that you're not putting yourself out there in a bigger way, you're not allowing yourself to be vulnerable or doing something courageous, make it a point to do at least one thing every week that's going to throw you out of your comfort zone. Just to be super personal with you here, me going live every week, that's out of my comfort zone. Being vulnerable in a relationship, being vulnerable with a coworker, being vulnerable with a family member, that could be something that's out of your comfort zone. Taking yourself on a nice date when your dates seem to be revolved around Netflix and your couch. These are things that you can do to start widening your window of tolerance and learning how to be present for your feelings. It's also probably going to put you in situations that could trigger you, and then you get to practice being present for those feelings and choosing to slow down instead of being reactive. So if that resonated for you today and you want to learn more, you're a woman over 40, maybe you've been stuck for a while, maybe you don't feel confident in your body, you don't feel confident in your choices in dating. Maybe it's been 30 years since you've been on a date because you were married for 25 of those years and you didn't really date your husband. And you want to know how to put yourself out there and rediscover this version of you and become a new woman. A lot of times people will say, I want to get back to the person that I was 30 years ago. That's probably not possible. You can only evolve forward, really. So if you want to learn more about how to do that, number one, I have a free masterclass called Break the Cycle that goes through the 5 shifts that I teach clients on how to overcome relational trauma, feel confident in their own skin, love themselves completely, and love and appreciate the dating process, and actually see the dating process as an extension of their healing versus something that they need to dread or avoid or be on high alert or hypervigilant with. So you can find that at bethanydotson.com/training. Secondly, if you've been watching these videos for a while and you feel aligned and you'd like to have an initial exploratory conversation to see if we're a good fit to work together, you can go to bethanydotson.com/talk and book an initial consultation call. That call is free. However, it is for people who have had a good amount of therapy. They've already established some healing work on their own. You've got a great life otherwise. You're great in your career. You've got a stable home life. There's nothing like your life isn't falling apart. You're kind of past that phase, and therapy has been good to you. You've had a lot of realizations, but you realize you're not quite getting the challenge that you need to get out of your comfort zone. You don't have a structure to follow every week. You don't have a game plan. And maybe your therapist is really nice and you feel comfortable with him or her, but you don't feel like that person is really calling you out on your stuff. And you want something that is going to help you accelerate your results. And you can book that call, bethanydotson.com/talk, and we'll have a very honest conversation about your life, what you want, what your fears are, and what it's going to take to help you overcome your fears. So I hope you have a beautiful rest of your day, and I will talk to you soon. Take care.